Oh, motherfucker, you can't have my cornbread. That's for damn sure. Because if you try to take my cornbread, part 2 of my killing spree gonna begin up in here on your ass right now. If you think about my cornbread, they get the taste out your mouth. That's for damn sure. Now, fuck him. Fuck that. Because I'm from New York City, goddammit. Nobody take no cornbread from me. That goes for you and any other you motherfucking farmers wanna try some shit. You fuck around with me, it's gonna be consequences and repercussions.
What up, what up, what up? What's good, everybody? He's Maestro Styles. I'm Trey Frazier.
Yes,
Welcome
sir.
to another edition of the Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast. We're live on the website, barbershopsportstalkpodcast.com. Make sure y'all follow us on Twitter at barbershopspor2. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast. Also, when you're on Instagram, make sure y'all check out 10-minute video of me and Maestro just chopping it up about the slam dunk contest on IGTV, actually. So make sure y'all check that out when y'all on Instagram. And also, if you're a YouTube subscriber, check us out on YouTube as well. That video is also on YouTube, and you can check us out on the Facebook page as well. Hey, man, it's episode 192, man, and somebody's lying, bruh. Somebody's lying.
Yeah.
And since this is your squad, man, I'll let you kind of take the floor on this one, man, and get this thing jump started.
So obviously over the weekend, Myles Garrett. Well, let's say before the weekend hit, it was announced that Myles Garrett was being reinstated back into the NFL. He then did a interview with Mina Kimes. Is that right? Is that her name? Am I saying her name right?
Mina Kimes is how you say it. I just couldn't remember if she was the one that actually did the interview or not.
Okay. Well, if it wasn't her, fine. But I think it was Mina Kimes. But Myles Garrett did an interview, essentially doubling down on the fact that Mason Rudolph use a racial slur. This is the last time I'll be using the word racial slur. I will be actually saying nigga for the rest of this podcast. But he doubled down on the fact that Myles Garrett called him a nigga on the field on that game in November where the Browns beat the shit out of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He doubled down. There was also a Outside the Lines episode where they essentially was talking about what happened in the interview that essentially got to the point where Mike Tomlin was like, look, get me on first take because I don't like the way my man's being represented. My man's being Mason Rudolph is being represented, and here we are. Mike Tomlin went on the first take and essentially supported Mason Rudolph and saying that, he said everything but Mason Rudolph didn't do it, but essentially said things like, Mason Rudolph should feel how he feels. That ESPN represented his side of the story poorly in that Outside the Lines episode, and that basically he's going to stand by his quarterback because there was no evidence based on the NFL's investigation nor his investigation that Mason Rudolph said it. So the fact that that's not being brought to light he's out here now on or I won't say he's on a press run, but he went on First Take to say specifically, I support Mason Rudolph because there's no proof saying he did what he's being accused of.
So
somebody's lying between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph, obviously, but it's how it's hitting in the media nowadays is Mason. It's Mike Tomlin versus Myles Garrett, which that's just how it's being pushed nowadays.
okay, because I've seen that narrative kind of being put out there where they're kind of making it look like it's Tomlin versus Garrett when it really should be Garrett versus Mason Rudolph in this situation. I want to read this tweet from Mason Rudolph. This was, I don't know if this was immediately following that interview with Mina Kimes, but Mason Rudolph's Twitter, he said 1000% false, bold-faced lie. I did not, have not, and would not utter a racial slur. This is a disgusting and reckless attempt to assassinate my character. So I got a question, right? Well, first let me kind of lay it out like this, right? The only proof, and if you want to call it proof, then go ahead. If not, I understand. But the only proof that we have of Mason Rudolph calling Myles Garrett a nigger is by what Myles Garrett claimed. He called him a nigger. We don't have any NFL audio from any of the wires that maybe some of those players that were nearby the situation wore.
Which, by the way, I do find that to be weird. Not to cut you off, I do find that to be weird.
Yeah, I do too. So we don't have that. We also don't have any of the Cleveland Browns players co-signing Myles Garrett. We don't have any of the Pittsburgh Steelers, or I should say this: we don't have any of the black Pittsburgh Steelers players that were around the situation agree with the claim that Myles Garrett made. So this is really the only proof that we have that Mason Rudolph called him a nigger. Now, people can throw out the fact that Mason Rudolph is, been on Twitter in the past and has spoken up for, views or kind of agreed with some of Donald Trump's views, some of Tommy Loren's views. We can pull all that stuff up. That's not enough for me to solidify that Mason Rudolph actually called him a nigger. And the same thing with Myles Garrett. I mean, the media keeps bringing up some of his quote unquote troubled
evidence.
past and some past events and stuff. And really, I'm not going to use that to make a claim against Myles Garrett to say that he's lying, for that matter. What I want to do to really kind of get down to the root of it is I need to hear from guys like the Castro, because he was in the scrum when it was all going down. I want to hear from Marquise Pouncey, and I know when you watch the video of it all going down, Marquise Pouncey kind of came in towards the end of that, right after the helmet hit, so he probably would have less to say than maybe a DeCastro would say. I want to hear from the Cleveland Browns player that pushed Mason Rudolph, the one that got the 1-game suspension. I want to hear from him. You know what I'm saying?
Because I want to hear from Mason Rudolph.
I agree. I agree with you 100%.
Like I get all of those other players, and I get that they may have something to offer. I want to hear from Mason Rudolph. We haven't heard from Mason Rudolph. I don't that tweet, his lawyer coming out and saying whatever his lawyer came out and said. That's not good enough for me. That's not good enough for me. I want to hear from Mason Rudolph.
No,
I want to be able to,
agree 1,000%, and not to echo 1,000% off his tweet. And even though he did come out to defend himself on Twitter, that's not enough for me. You know what I'm saying?
That's not a defense to me.
It's not. Well, I don't want to say it's not a defense. I'm just saying it's not enough. Like I
Yeah.
need Mason Rudolph to be interviewed by somebody. The way Mina
Mm-hmm.
Kimes interviewed Myles Garrett, somebody at ESPN got to call Mason Rudolph and be like, "Yo, I want to get your side of the story.
Let's talk.
Like, what's
Yeah.
up?"
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
100%. So obviously, it's all speculation. You know, who you think lying?
I tell you what, man. I really think that the Pittsburgh Steelers are lying in this situation. And when I say Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm talking about Mike Tomlin. I'm talking
Mm-hmm.
about Mason Rudolph. I'm leaning more so on the side of Myles Garrett here because I'll go back to that evening and the fact that it was 4 seconds left in the game, the Browns were going to win the football game. There was really
Mm-hmm.
no need for the action that he took towards Mason Rudolph, but something in me told myself that Myles Garrett was set off in some way somehow. You know what I'm saying? You took his helmet off, or I should say, he tried to take your helmet off first. He
Right.
wasn't strong enough to take your helmet off. You
Yeah.
replied back and said, "Hey, I'm gonna take your helmet off, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
actually pull it off this time."
Yeah.
And the back and forth for about 2 seconds verbally, and then next thing you know, he bops him
Oh,
over the head with the helmet.
okay. You said the 2 or 3 seconds of verbal. What 2 or 3 seconds of verbal did we see?
Well, I saw lips moving from Mason Rudolph's side. I couldn't read them, but I saw lips moving from Mason Rudolph. Like when De Castro was trying to come in between them. This was right after he took his helmet off. Right after
Mm-hmm.
he
When
took
he
his helmet.
charged them.
Right, right. So if I remember correctly, there was a shot where I saw some lips moving. I couldn't read them, but there was definitely some verbiage. Maybe not back and forth, maybe just on one side, and maybe that's why maybe that's why Myles Garrett reacted the way he did. And so oh, Maestro just dropped out of this thing. Hold on, folks. Hold on, folks. Let me get Maestro back on here real quick here. This thing kind of. Oh, here we go. Hold on, Maestro. I got you.
That's my fault.
Oh, okay. I was like, come on, man, not the Wi-Fi again.
No, it wasn't the Wi-Fi. Fame, we ain't taking phone calls, man. Sorry, man.
Yeah, I
It
just
was
don't know
Fame
how.
call.
What's up?
Fame was calling. Fame was calling me literally just
Oh,
as that was happening. And I couldn't. I can't put that together yet, Fame. We trying this new Skype thing. And I can't put the phone call situation together.
yeah, I can't. I probably could on my side. I just don't want to figure it out right
Okay.
now. That's kind of where I'm at with it right now. So, Fame,
But
if you
put your
wanna,
comments. Put your comment in, Fame.
yeah, definitely. Give us your thoughts on what you think's going on. So, but yeah, just kind of back to the whole Garrett versus Rudolph. I'm leaning more so on the side of Myles Garrett.
And again, you just to reiterate what you said, because I just want to make sure I heard what you said.
Right.
Basically, because you feel like you saw Mason Rudolph saying something when he was charging Myles Garrett.
Yes, I felt like that one angle of them scrumming together. I thought I saw some movement of his lips towards Myles Garrett. But even just
Hmm.
kind of put that aside. Again, the situation was that the game was over. The Browns were going to claim victory. Myles Garrett, there was no need for him to really do what he did because victory's on his side. And the fact that it got to the level that it got to tells me that something set Myles Garrett off.
Okay.
Something
Well,
set him off.
okay. Well, I should say this. I disagree. I think I don't. I'm leaning towards Mason Rudolph didn't call him a nigga.
Okay.
Um, and the reason why, well, there are a few reasons. One, if he called him a nigga,
Mm-hmm.
and by the way, I was all for it when it was happening. You know, Mason Rudolph might be a racist. I was all for it.
Right.
Mace it came out that he used that Mason Rudolph called him a nigga after punishment was handed down. Am I correct in that?
So when it first happened, I think a couple of days after the fact, that was when we found out that he decided to wait until a day or two later to say that Mason Rudolph called him a nigga. So you're right about that, Maestro. I do want to add in there though. I heard the former general manager John Dorsey came out earlier today and basically stated the claim that Mason Rudolph, no, I'm sorry, that Myles Garrett did go to him immediately after the game was over to tell him that, yo, Mason Rudolph called me a nigga. That's why, I did what I did. So
Okay.
that's John Dorsey's claim.
Okay. So my thing is that as soon as and let me be clear on my stance. I lean more towards Mason Rudolph because I trust Mike Tomlin's character.
Okay.
I feel like Mike Tomlin is a respected a respected black man, two, a great coach in the NFL, and three, one of those coaches in the NFL who, as a member of the competition committee, one of those guys who, players and coaches alike respect because he'll come and talk to you about foot. Like, he talks to you, like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Everything you hear about who Tomlin is as a person is the type of guy that's like, hey, if there's a problem, he gonna go try to figure out what the issue is, and he gonna try to resolve the issue. Those types of things.
Yep.
So when Mike Tomlin says, um, I went and spoke to whoever I needed to speak to, and nobody would say that to me offline. Meaning, I spoke to players off. I spoke to coaches. I spoke to those types of people who I have connections with, and nobody would say to me, "Yeah, your man's is tripping." That does speak volumes to me. Two, uh, I respect the whole idea of Mason Rudolph. Myles Garrett wanting to keep it a secret for a few days, if that be the case.
Uh-huh.
But I feel like if another black player heard a white player call him a nigga, automatically other black players would immediately be offended. Somebody would be offended.
Yep.
Where maybe not maybe not that black player would, go out and be blasting Mason Rudolph, or that black player would be attacking him on the field once he heard it or thought he heard it.
Yep.
But it would have leaked. In today's news cycle, news world, social media, etc.
Yep.
Myles Garrett would have not been allowed to control the narrative or control the secret of him being called a nigga if other players or other people heard it when it happened. And to be clear, when the time that we're alleging it happened is when Myles Garrett was already being restrained by the Castro, whoever he was being restrained by, and Mason Rudolph was getting up off the ground and charging him, allegedly calling him a nigga. If I'm understanding how the timetable is being built. Yeah. So there were people around when he got up to charge him, calling him a nigga, and then Myles Garrett swung the helmet.
Yep.
I feel like if that were the case and Myles Garrett was charging him, calling him a nigga, it wouldn't have just been Myles Garrett swinging a helmet at him. It would have been some other shit going on.
Right. And just to kind of add to that, and I know we disagree, but just to kind of add to your point, I feel like if the Castro and correct me if I'm wrong, the Castro is Italian white. Am I correct about that?
Sure.
Okay. I feel like if the Castro heard Mason Rudolph say that he might have been like, yo, Mason, you gotta check yourself. You can't call him that.
Right. I mean, if it was the Castro, if it were anybody who was in the vicinity of that being said,
Yeah.
I feel like some type of reaction there would have been some type of reaction to that, because as much as another white dude is crazy, you're going to be like, oh, this is where you're going to let it out. This is where you're going to let your racism out on the field, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like I just can't see. I can't see nobody saying nothing. You know what I'm saying? I can't see nobody saying nothing up until, the 2 or 3 days that Myles Garrett decided to come out and say, oh, this is what happened. I can't fathom that.
Right. How much stock do you put into the fact that the stadium was loud? I'm sure it was noisy at that point in the game, and that there's a possibility. I'm not saying this to be a fact or not to be a fact, but considering crowd noise, considering the number of people around the situation, and considering that Mason Rudolph, for all we know, might have been screaming, but other cats around other than Garrett might not have been able to hear what Rudolph said, and that Myles Garrett was the only guy that could have heard what Mason Rudolph had said.
If we're saying that, I don't put much stock into that, again, because if it happened, and again, this is if we're just playing the sequence. Yep. If we're drawing the sequence to say Garrett calling him a nigga while being restrained by David DeCastro, I can't believe that Myles Garrett heard and David DeCastro didn't.
No, I mean that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
I honestly could see it both ways. I honestly can. I don't think there's a right or wrong in that situation, but I think what you're saying.
Yeah, that just doesn't logically make sense to me, especially in the grand, and then in the grand scheme of things, that means David DeCastro was closer to, I mean, if just by a fraction, he was closer to Mason Rudolph than Myles Garrett was, because he was pushing Myles Garrett away from Mason Rudolph. I can't go with that either. I don't think again, for my main reasoning being, I can't imagine I can't imagine Mason Rudolph saying that on the field and nobody saying nothing about it and just flat out keeping it a secret. If a Browns player heard it, if it was just hearsay up until the point that Myles Garrett announced it, I can't fathom why any player that is not okay with that language being used on the field, I can't. Why would you do that? Why would you hold that? You certainly not holding in respect of Myles Garrett. And the other piece is, what does Myles Garrett stand to gain by holding it for 2 days? What does he really stand to gain from that?
And to kind of throw another question in there, what is the incentive for Myles Garrett in this situation to kind of say, hey, a few months later, I'm still gonna stand by this. Let's just say, you know, it's not true. Let's say Mason Rudolph didn't call him a nigga, and Myles
Yeah.
Garrett is still, standing by his word. What's the incentive for Myles Garrett?
I'm the only incentive which I agree that that's weird. Like why? I could see, somebody asking him a question and he
Uh
just
huh.
saying, "Nah, I know what happened to me. I know what the NFL did, but I want to make it clear that I did it because of this."
Right.
And that don't mean he's telling the truth or lying. I mean, he could have. If you tell a lie, you got to continue to live by the lie until
Until right
you
until
decide to
court
tell
of
the truth again.
open court of opinion. Basically.
Yeah. So I can mean on a sheer vanity level, I could totally see Myles Garrett saying, "Yeah, no, I still didn't do it." I could see that.
I could see it too. I could see the incentive in him just kind of holding his stance just because, as a black man, that's what you're taught. If, you feel like you've been wronged in a situation, you stand your ground until, proven otherwise. And right
Yeah,
now, we can't prove otherwise. We can't prove that he called him a nigga. We can't prove that he didn't call him a nigga at this point. The only thing
right.
we're going by is he said,
It's
he
word of
said.
mouth.
Is that
It's word of
exactly?
mouth.
Exactly.
So why? So at what? So why at this point? So yeah, and again, I could totally see him saying, "All right, well, you know what? I'm gonna still stick by it because and then when you're talking about possible legal situations,
Yep.
um, now in the press, you need to stand as tall as ever because if he really decide he want to take this to court for defamation of character and all
Yep.
that,
Yep.
he still got to stand strong by that. He still got to stand strong by his opinion because really at the end of the day, all you're going to have is your testimony because the NFL can't prove whether he said it or not because
Right.
the mics were off, quote unquote.
Right. Which again, I mean, we said it earlier. To me, that's just kind of weird that all of a sudden microphones are turned off towards the end of the game because I can't tell you how many times I've watched NFL films like
Yeah,
Made or NFL Replay or any of these other shows that come on during the middle of the week during the season, and at the end of games, you still hear guys talking through their microphones, even when they meet at
yeah,
midfield to kind of congratulate one another
right.
and send each other off. Those mics are still on.
Yeah, that does not make sense to me. Them the mics not being on, and then um, you know, and I think I understood or read the verbiage correctly. It wasn't that it was a mic malfunction. The
Hmm.
mics weren't cut on. So
Hmm.
that they didn't even say that it was a malfunction and the mics just happened to not be working for some reason. They said
Right.
explicitly that they were not on. And I can't fathom for the life of me during the NBA game, I mean sorry, NBA NFL game,
Yep.
why the mics would not be on all the way until they are off the field. Till teams walk off the field.
So let me read Fame's comment here in the chat. He says, I don't believe Garrett, but I don't believe Rudolph. But a dirty little secret in sports is the racial trash talk. Garrett is from Texas. He can't tell me that's the first time he's been called that. Getting called that is no excuse for an adult to wild out. Your thoughts on his comment?
Um, I I disagree. I disagree, but I understand the sentiment, and it's funny because I had a fresh argument about this whole situation this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And look, here's the thing, man. If we as black people who we just want our place in equality and all that, and we want to be respected and treated as equals as human beings.
Yep.
If there were such a word that we could call white people that was as nasty as the word nigger, or nigger,
Yeah.
and the roles were reversed, and Myles Garrett called Mason Rudolph that word, we'd be trying to, it'd be a problem. We'd be,
The coverage would be so much different than what
yeah,
it is now.
it'd be much different. So for me, um, I'm, I'm, he should pay the consequences for his actions. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't say about how another man reacts. I can't tell another man how to react when he feels like he was offended on the highest level of offense. You like you're not going to sit here and just call me, and I don't give a fuck how mad you are. I don't give a fuck about what you think I did, because let's be very clear. That tackle was extra. It was extra. It was piling on after the fact that you had already won the game.
Yep.
You could have easily let him go. The ball was out of Mason Rudolph's hands. All that extra wiggling just to get him down was unnecessary. 100%. Don't give me, oh, it happens in games all the time. No, there is a sense of couth where you realize, okay, look, the ball is out. I don't have to do this.
Yeah.
There is a sense of coup that players do exercise in those situations. And Myles Garrett, for whatever reason, ain't knocking him. He decided that that's how he was going to go about the tackle to Mason Rudolph. And so the thing is that Mason Rudolph got upset because he didn't like the way he was being treated.
Right.
Being piled on with 8 seconds left in the game that they were clearly not going to win in Pittsburgh's territory, when you clearly know the ball is out my hand. So yeah, I feel some kind of way about how you was treating me, and I responded. Now, sadly enough for Mason Rudolph wasn't strong enough to retaliate in the fashion that he thought he was going to retaliate. And then when he realized he lost that battle, when he was trying to take his helmet off and Garrett ended up taking his helmet off, guess what? Mason Rudolph is still mad. So he want to try his hand again. And then when he tried his hand again, Myles Garrett was like, you know what? Hold that, because now I'm mad. That's just as plausible in my mind as him getting up and calling him a nigger. But I don't think, I just don't think he called him a nigger. I think that if he had called him a nigger, it would have came out. But it would have came out before, and Myles Garrett and his camp would have not been allowed to control the narrative of when that detail came out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't have an argument with your side of it.
Sure.
When I look at Mason Rudolph's tweet, I can't just look at that tweet and basically say, oh, he's just bluffing, because I don't know. I mean, I've seen players in sports not respond to accusations to not defend themselves immediately. Mason Rudolph did that. Whether we believe him or not, that's a different topic. But the fact that he did that tells me that possibly, he's innocent in all this. So I at least respect him for doing that to come out to defend himself. With regards to
But why? But why not? But again, why not say it when it happened?
No, I agree 1,000%, and the fact that there's conflicting stories about that now that's coming out. John Dorsey, stated his claim that Garrett did come to him after the game to tell him that that's what happened. But I would ask John Dorsey, hey, why didn't you come out and defend
Right.
him? After it happened.
And let's be clear. Nobody has defended Myles Garrett in that locker room up until now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because
Nobody has.
even Baker, at the press conference after the game was like, "Yo, there's no room for that in the game."
Right. And then here's the second piece. So what happens now in that locker room when Myles Garrett comes back? And how does that conversation play out between Myles Garrett and Baker Mayfield? And that there was another Browns player, I just can't who's in that post game conference.
Yep.
And it might have even been Kitchens who was not supporting this play, not supporting his player.
Right.
In the post game conference when it happened. So it's
I think you're right. It might have been Kitchens. I think you're right about that.
Yeah. So how does I guess Kitchens is fired, so they don't have to cross that bridge.
Right.
But nobody, I mean, to this day, even after the 2 days later, Garrett comes out and says this is what happened. Nobody, and I mean nobody, in that dysfunctional Browns locker room thought like, man, oh, that's what happened. Oh, I'm riding with my man. It's like nobody spoke on that, and that says a lot to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. It does say a lot. I think it says a lot on both sides though. Like just the actions during the game, just the reaction the way Garrett kind of handled that situation. That spoke a lot. And just kind of getting back to Fame's comment though, I disagree with him too, but just from this standpoint, just because a cat's been called a nigga multiple times doesn't mean that he's just gonna be like, oh, I've been called this, too many times. This is nothing new. I mean, different strokes, different folks. I mean,
and I can't
cats
speak to
react
Texas
to it differently.
football. I can't speak to Texas football. I don't know what happens in Texas football. All I can tell you is here in this no, I can't even say here in this luxurious city. I've never heard of any behavior like that, but I know have Maestro Styles be a football player at the bottom of a pile or tackling anybody or anything, and a white person call me a nigger. It's happening.
Yeah, it's on
It's
site.
happening.
Yeah.
And that don't necessarily mean that me and Myles Garrett got the same ideals about what should happen when it happens.
Yep.
But clearly he does if emphatically he was called a nigga by Mason Rudolph. But if that's the case, let it be known, bro. Like, don't sit here and try to see the way I see it. I think he came out with the whole nigga thing when he realized, oh shit, I'm in trouble. That's what I think. I mean, I think Myles Garrett is lying.
Like in trouble in what sense? Like he's gonna get suspended? Trouble?
I might. Well, see, suspension was on the table.
Anyway.
Yes, there were guys saying that he shouldn't play football again because we haven't seen this.
I do remember that. Yeah.
There were guys saying that he shouldn't play football. There were guys saying he should be arrested for assault.
Yeah, that was my first thought. I'll be honest with you. When that happened, I was I drifted from the game because the game got out of hand, and Debbie woke me up and was like, "Babe, you got to see this." And then I see him hit him over the head with the helmet, and my first thought was, "Whoa, like they could really make a case to not let him play in the league again." I mean, not that I was wishing that on him, but
for certain.
Initially, you're thinking, damn, like I've never seen this to this extent in a game like this before. The NFL is probably going to look at that and say, okay, it's been a long time since we've seen things like this, and you know how the NFL works when it comes to trying to stipulate how many games a person should get. I don't think there's a handbook on this stuff. I think they just kind of go by what the consensus is. I think they just go by off of feelings. So
I mean, I think they take I think they take accounts of who said what and how they think it plays out. I mean, I even think to a lesser degree, but I do think that they listen to sports, major sports media platforms and draw an opinion of what the people think.
Yeah.
And then base that, and then put all those things together, and they come up with a sentence. Suspension indefinitely is a different vibe, and it throws a different tone than suspended for the rest of the year. Suspended indefinitely means you could never play football again. There's a possibility of you never playing football again. Yep. Whereas suspended for the end of the year means you're just getting those 6 games and then you're going to be back into you're good. You know what I'm saying? So those are two totally different conclusions that you draw from the verbiage of those punishments being handed down. So I definitely think that it's a let's get all the information. Let's see what the people are saying, because we know if we do something like give them 2 games, the people who were on Mason Rudolph's side is going to go ape shit. And if the people that were on Myles Garrett's side, if they banned them from football, then that they're gonna go ape shit. You know what I'm saying? So so they do take into account their patrons in how they hand down punishment. I truly believe that.
So I got a couple questions before we kind of put a button on this topic here. Do you think that the fact that Mason Rudolph is a backup quarterback, do you think that plays in the way of how this is being covered by the media, or how this is kind of, or how the situation has shaped out to be what it is? Do you think that his position
how so
in the league? I don't know, and I guess this is just me looking at a conspiracy theory situation, because I'm just wondering, had this been like, if this was Roethlisberger,
okay,
would this play out the same way it's playing out now, or would this be different because of his stature?
When you say different, though, I mean, so it depends on how you feel about who's winning.
Like, I guess what I'm saying is, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, that Mason Rudolph did call him a nigga, and Mason Rudolph is defending himself in Twitter, and Mike Tomlin is coming on TV to defend him the way he did on First Take the other day. What's the incentive to defend Mason Rudolph? Is it just the fact that, he's a teammate, he's part of the organization, so we're going to back our players no matter what. We're not going to throw them under the bus in the media. Is it that kind of a thing?
No, because if it would be right, if in that argument, it wouldn't just be Mike Tomlin. It would be the entire team. It would be Mike Pouncey. It would be, one of the veteran players on that team. It'd be the Castro. It'd be Villanueva for certain. It'd be those guys who were coming out and saying, Ben don't do that. You know what I'm saying? That's that, because not only of the, over the years relationship, but because that's your starting quarterback. That's not somebody you about to just replace. I do agree that there would be it would have something to do with the fact that the importance of the quarterback, the importance of the starting quarterback to your team. Offensive lineman feels the need to support in that way, for your starting quarterback. So I don't think per se that would change. But then that depends on who you feel like is leading, or who you feel like is who the public feels like is telling the truth. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
that's true. And most of the time, the public is gonna base what they feel happened off of history, off of
exactly. History. So we've all heard of behavior or rumors of behavior from Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah. So if this were Ben Roethlisberger, there might be a few more people on Myles Garrett's side because of how they feel about Ben Roethlisberger. Even with the Myles Garrett, there are a few more people on Mason Rudolph's side because of how people perceive Myles Garrett. This isn't the first time Myles Garrett done ripped off somebody's helmet or did something that would speak to violence. Now, this is obviously the biggest thing he's done, or the most egregious thing he's done. But we've heard stories of Myles Garrett losing his cool per se before. So we've heard that before. So it's easier to believe that Myles Garrett would do something like this, whether Mason Rudolph called him a nigga or not.
Right. And whether people and I'll say it again, whether people want to use the fact that Mason Rudolph supports Trump, supports Tommy Loren, and supports white supremacists and things like that. I'll say it again. I'm not going to use that as something to show proof that Mason Rudolph called him a nigga.
Yeah, but if we're
Garrett,
going to use that, but if we're going to use history,
right,
for the sake of arguments, I believe that it's more likely that Myles Garrett hits Mason Rudolph with a helmet than Mason Rudolph, based on his history, calling Myles Garrett a nigga.
I agree, 100%. Totally agree with that. Let me say what's up to the folks in the chat room. We got Mac Farrell in the building.
What's happening?
We got Miss Mocha Bella repping the X Squad up in the building.
What's happening?
This is the Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast, live on barbershopsportstalkpodcast.com. Check us out in the chat room. Also on Twitter at BarbershopSPOR2. Also on Instagram at Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast. And on the Facebook page as well, and also on YouTube. So before I get to Snoop Dogg, I just wanna, and I promised myself that I wouldn't bring up the All-Star Game and the All-Star Game weekend festivities.
Oh no, yeah, because I definitely was going to, whether you did or not.
Oh, okay. I gotta give a shout out. I gotta give a shout out to Common, because Common over the weekend made himself some bread, like some serious bread, man. I mean, from planning the celebrity game on Friday night to
I don't think he
being
gets
the
paid for that.
judge. What's up?
I don't think he gets paid for that.
Okay. To him being a judge Saturday night during the dunk contest, to him doing the player introductions, and also having a hand in the Kobe tribute Sunday. Man, I tell you, man, he put on for his city, and I gotta tell you, when the NBA does things like this, when they go city to city every year for this All Star event, they make sure that the hometown people get their shine. And I think this year in Chicago, they made sure that they hometown people, got the shine that, they deserve. I mean, you've heard Common beats throughout the weekend. You've heard Lupe Fiasco beats, Kanye beats. You've heard, I think I even heard a Consequence song on one of the commercials, if I'm not mistaken. And then, you talk about the players who are from Chicago, Dwayne Wade, Candace Parker, Isaiah Thomas, Anthony Davis, just to name a few. I mean, they know what they're doing. They being the NBA, they know what they're doing when it comes to, the All-Star game, the festivities, and whatever city it's in, they make sure, hey, we got to get this hometown cat, we got to get this hometown dude, we got to do something special. And from a rap standpoint, and I don't mean to get into the rap topic of this, but I think this weekend made me realize that when it comes to Chicago MCs, like, Common is like the creme de la creme. Like, he's, and I get Twister's great. Common is like, when you think of Chicago hip hop, Common is, if not at the top of the list, he's 1A. In my
If you
book.
talking, okay, in your book, sure. I won't argue in your book. The biggest rapper in Chicago, if you're talking about today in 2020, it's probably going to have to be Chance the Rapper. That's just what it is.
Of course.
That's just what it is. In my personal opinion, and obviously, back when we were coming up, I was probably the biggest Common fan ever. I remember when I was given like Water for Chocolate and immediately turned out, and I'm that Common dude. unfortunately, when it comes to, I mean, it just depends on what you're talking about. Let me say that. Lupe Fiasco.
Yep.
Lupe Fiasco lyrically is just another level that Common has never. I mean, flat out has never been on. It's no nicer way to put it. I like Common better as an MC when you put all the everything together. And obviously he's had the longer career, and
longevity,
I like Common's music better.
Yep.
But if you're just talking about rapping on a beat with bars and flow and those, Lupe for me, and I think anybody who has dug deep into Lupe's catalog. Thank you. It's hands. I think Common would say that. So just for that, to rebut that conversation. But getting back to the All-Star game, all of that was cool. But when I tell you that since the Marbury All-Star game, when Marbury went off, this was the best All-Star game since then. Anytime you're talking about a fourth quarter where Bama's is taking charges and they having jump balls because Bama's is
niggas getting feisty on the court and niggas arguing with the referees.
Yeah, this has. I mean, the level of play that was being exhibited in that fourth quarter. They got something right with this whole, the first to 24 in the fourth quarter wins.
Yep.
They got something right there, man. They got something right. And on the side note, we're not gonna have to worry about 200-point games anymore.
And another side note, in the fourth quarter, there is no game clock. There's no. There's no.
Yeah, they go to 24. That's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah, they're going to do. They first to 24 wins.
Yep.
So it's funny because in prior years we talked about how they want this game to get to the 200s. They have successfully made this a pickup game. That fourth quarter looked like a pickup game with the best players in the world. They got to keep this. They got to keep players motivated to play in that fourth quarter, man. Because this was the best All-Star game since Marbury in 2001. I want to say.
And you know how else you could tell that this was one of the better All-Star games since then? When I look at all the photos, and I looked at some stuff online, but there was a shot.
Did you see that fourth quarter?
I missed maybe about 75% of the fourth quarter. But just to kind of, give you a glimpse of what I saw on social media, there was a shot of LeBron, and I forget who was guarding him, but when you look beyond the court and the fans in the stands, everybody is like on their feet looking and just kind of watching like, yo, like this is some real, like this is a real game. Like this is like street ball, West 4th, Rucker Park. This is some real, street ball type stuff going on right here. And for me, I was like, yo, the NBA got something right this time. This deal with the 24 points, to win the game, and the fact that the game ended on a free throw. And I know a lot of people have a problem with that, but
I don't.
So be it. I don't. I didn't have an issue with it.
I don't.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we've seen many of regular season games, end on a free throw. Not so much end like that.
Obviously, not in that fashion.
Not in that fashion, but we've seen free throws taken to take a lead, and then that's it. The other team can't score because of a turnover or time running out.
Yeah. I didn't have a problem with the free throw, with that whole free throw thing. But that game, I mean, watching Greek Freak and one on one with LeBron on the baseline, and he tried to body up Greek Freak, and Greek Freak still got the block, even though he put the body on him. And Kyle Lowry trying to get the charge, missing it once and coming back and getting the charge again, like like they was playing like it was an NBA, like it was a regular season game, and it wasn't an exhibition in that fourth quarter, man. And I get, hopefully nobody gets injured if they continue this, because that's what's going to get them to chill again.
Yep.
But man, I tell you, I enjoyed this All-Star game, and really for the most part this All-Star weekend. And I didn't watch the skills challenge or the 3-point contest, but the dunk contest in the game was enough for me, man. Was enough for me. And what I see, and what parts I did see of the USA versus the World game, like it was enough for me. This was a successful, a highly successful All-Star weekend as a whole. And like I said, just based on how good that game was, I can't really think of a better weekend in a whole, because I just simply don't remember 2001. But
now 2001, that was in DC, right?
I don't remember if it was in DC or not. I just remember this is what Stephon Marbury was coming back, just going down, throwing threes in the fourth quarter. And the East ended up winning the game. I don't remember if it was in DC or not.
Okay. Because I remember it came to DC around that time. I'm not sure if it was 2001 or 02.
I'm not sure
exactly the year. I just know it was around that time frame. But yeah, man, I was pleased with what I saw from the All-Star Weekend and the way the NBA handled it.
They got this right. I don't even want to say they got one thing right, because they've been getting things right for a while now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so but definitely kudos to the NBA, David Stern, everybody involved. Every Kobe tribute, I was okay with every Kobe tribute. Common, Jennifer Hudson, I was okay with everything that happened. Magic Johnson, I was okay with everything that happened, and respected him. I kind of I don't want to say I had a problem with Kawhi Leonard winning the Kobe Bryant MVP award. But it was nice that he got it. I think I was leaning more towards Anthony Davis, just because of his his late quarter.
Hey, it's his city.
yeah. I think I would have liked Anthony Davis, but I ain't mad at Kawhi Leonard.
Right.
It was just a good weekend for the NBA. Even in cold ass Chicago, it was a great freaking weekend for the NBA, and they deserve to be respected.
I don't care about that.
I only say that because if the cold affects how the parties go, it affects how people move in Chicago. Like I know a few people who went to All-Star Weekend, and watching them wear short skirts and that cold weather, it looks stupid to me. You can't really let it go the way you want to when the weather's warm. That was my only criticism.
Okay. Because we're big Stephen A. fans. We rock with the guy, but sometimes whenever it has something to do with him going to a cold weather city, I always got to hear about, man, it's too damn cold. I'm like, bro,
we don't like the cold, man, and that does mean you got to understand.
I get
it's a party weekend.
No, I get it. I get it 100%, and I get that Chicago cold is a totally different cold from, like, let's say, New York City cold. I totally get that 100%. But me as a fan, I guess it's just me. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Because at the end of the day, the clubs are gonna get their money. They're gonna get their crowds coming in. The parties are gonna be popping. At the end of the day, it's gonna go down like that.
I would implore you, and obviously I haven't been there either, but I would implore you one day, when this podcast sets off and we get to cover an All-Star weekend, I would implore you to try going out and cold to Chicago, and because you have to go out and be out in the scene, I would implore you to go out in Chicago and then go out in Miami and have this same opinion.
my whole thing is whatever city the festivities are in, just deal with it. That I guess that's my attitude towards it. If I gotta rock a mink coat and some Timberland boots with like 3 pairs of long johns, then I gotta do what I gotta do. You know what
But
I'm
then you're gonna
saying?
go in the club and sweat.
You know, hey, it is what it is. But
Nah, you don't want to
it's
be that nigga in the club sweating, bro.
I'm just
You don't
saying
want to be that nigga.
my
No,
well my
I
well
hear,
my point well my
I
point
hear what
is
you're saying.
I'm
I
I'm
hear
just
what you're
I'm just gonna
saying. You just
I'm
sound
just
like
gonna be
somebody who hasn't
prepared.
been there. I
Well,
hear
I
what you're
haven't
saying.
no, I haven't been there, but I've also been, I've been to Buffalo a few times. Buffalo is a different kind of cold than New York City, and both of those places are in the same damn state.
Right,
Um,
but you do understand what it looks like at that level of notoriety to be the nigga sweating in the club because you got on 3 pairs of long johns.
well, if you're talking about being in the
That
club
that's
sweating,
emphatically what I'm talking. That's all that I'm talking about. You
sure,
in the
okay,
NBA All Star Weekend, you have
sure,
to be out and about in order to grasp the whole
sure,
experience.
sure, and I
You would
and I
much
know
rather
I'm
do that in the warm.
and I know I'm exaggerating on 3 layers of long johns. I know I'm exaggerating about that, but my whole point is that if I'm one of those media guys and I gotta go to Chicago to cover an All Star game, knowing that this party's popping off and other things going on, I'm just gonna be prepared for it. I might complain a little bit, but I'm gonna be prepared for it.
But the weather does affect the weekend. I mean, it doesn't change how your experience. It doesn't per se change it drastically, but it definitely is an important component to how you enjoy All Star Weekend.
Okay. Well, I'll just have to one day maybe take a
I'm only
test.
taking that, and I'm only taking that opinion from people who I know have been to All Star Weekend in the cold and in the warm,
I was gonna say to All Star Weekend in one of
in
those
the
cold
cold
weather cities.
and when it was hot.
Right. No, I get it because Miami totally different ball game. L.A. totally different ball game. I mean, hell, if it was in Phoenix, totally different ball game. And we don't consider Phoenix to be a party city, but because the weather is so nice year round, people, go about it very differently. They prepare
And then
for it
maybe the party's
very
gonna be as
differently.
popping in Phoenix as it is in because the clubs, I would assume, just based on the notoriety of Chicago versus Phoenix, the parties might be better in the clubs at Chicago, but the weather is better in Phoenix. So it's always going to be something to criticize. I'm not making, it just is what it is. I
Yeah,
think the only
yeah,
thing I've heard about it is that Chicago is cold. So then nobody, people
yeah.
go out because that's what they came to do, but then
Right,
nobody
right,
really want to be out in the cold if they
right.
could be out in the warm.
And I guess just as a fan, I guess as a fan for me, I guess I don't care as much
But
because
you're talking
I
about
don't.
being a fan of the basketball experiences though, and not the entire All Star experience.
Well, not just that. I'm just speaking from the standpoint that I've never been to Chicago before. I've never been to a lot of places in the Midwest, on the West Coast. I've never been to a lot of these places. So when I hear people on television complain about certain things about a particular city, it's like, all right, if you don't want to go, hell, give me your damn ticket. I'll go because I ain't never been there
Uh,
before. And if I
oh,
and if
so
I
it's
don't like
hate.
it, and if I don't like the experience, then I won't go again. That's just kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I hear you.
So, just want to shout out Shelly B in the chat room.
What's
Appreciate you,
happening?
appreciate you. So, Big Snoop Dogg, man. He apologized last week to Gayle King in a Instagram video, and basically just said, "Hey, look, I had a conversation with my mother, and she said, look, I raised you better than that, and you were wrong. So, we came out and said, hey, look, I apologize for calling her the things that I called her in the previous video. But at the end of the day, she still was out of pocket for bringing up Kobe Bryant and the sexual assault case. So,
Hmm.
um, I guess there's from what I've seen on social media anyway, there's people that are saying that Snoop was forced to do this by someone other than his mother. There's people that claim that because he's got the TV show with Martha Stewart, that women groups have come forward and said, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
you got to put some pressure on this guy." What he did in the video to her was, what he said, what he called Gayle King in the video was unacceptable.
Right.
Snoop has got to address that. So I'll hear from you, man. What did you think about the apology?
I think it was forced.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because and obviously I don't know Snoop personally, but in my mind, I know Snoop personally. And Snoop strikes me as the type of dude that he gonna say what he feel.
Yep.
And bitch is a word that's in his vocabulary.
Yep.
So he meant what he said, not necessarily because he thinks she a bad person, but when you respond or when you do something that resembles that of a bitch,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm gonna call it.
Yep.
That's what I'm gonna call that situation, and not necessarily her as a person. I don't think he dislikes her. I
Yep.
don't think he disliked her when he said it. I think he was angry, and when you angry at somebody's actions, when you acting like that,
Yep.
then that's the verbiage you get.
Yep.
With that being said, um, he made it clear in his second video. I don't mean no harm towards Gayle King, but she did some foul shit, and I was angry. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna respond to her as if I was angry because that's what I am, and that's what the language.
Right.
Um, and I'm gonna do it unapologetically. But here's the thing. I say a lot of things that I say a lot of shit. And just so you know, I don't implore my mother to watch my podcast. You know why? Because I know I'm gonna say some shit that she's not gonna like. So I don't even I say, Mom, she asked me one day, I said, don't listen to it. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say some shit you don't like.
Right.
So, if you don't want to hear me say these things, then you should not watch, or listen, or however she decides to take the podcast.
Yep.
Um, I just tell her I don't do it, because I can't. That's how I feel. But I can't. But if my mother, for some reason, didn't like what I said on the podcast and told me, "Hey, I don't like what you said,"
Yep.
I would have, that's my mother.
Right.
That's my mother. I would have to at least take strong consideration. And more times than not, if my mother said, "Hey, I don't like what you said about, I don't know, Mason Rudolph, and Myles Garrett. I don't like what you said about Myles Garrett, and you should apologize for what you said, or at least make your stance clearer." I would at least make an attempt to do that because I respect my mother.
Right.
So I don't have any beef with Snoop apologizing. I do think that there were other factions, and other women organizations that were putting pressure on him as well. But at the end of the day, Mom Duke said, "Hey, you out of pocket," just like he called Gayle King to be out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Mom Duke,
You know what a good example of this is?
you
Just
got
to
to respect
use.
Mom Duke's opinion.
Oh,
I
Maestro, I think you
apologize
went.
because you respect your mother more than any of this bullshit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Maestro,
Can you
you
hear me
was kind
now?
of. Yeah. You was kind of coming in and out for a second there, but I was just gonna say that I think a good example of what you just talked about was I remember when Steph Curry dropped a three on somebody, and the nigga was cussing on the court, right? And then the next day, the nigga came out in the media and was like, Mama Sonia, or in his case, his mother, was like, I read what you said on the court after that shot. I don't like that. And he apologized for saying the things that he said after that shot on the court. So that concept of if your mama tells you she don't like something and you got to do something to address it or fix it, basically, then you just got to bow down to mama and just say, all right, I was totally in the wrong. I got to fix this. I got to do what I got to do. So, in the case of Snoop, right, I commend him for doing that. I didn't feel like he necessarily had to apologize, and I'll go back to what I said last week about his initial video. Is that Snoop Dogg is a lifelong fan of the LA Lakers. So he has personal relationships with Kobe Bryant and other players, but in particular Kobe Bryant. And once he lost his mans in that accident, Snoop Dogg felt a certain type of way, like I would imagine most fans of the team felt like. And
Like we felt.
like we felt about it, right? And I'm sure for Snoop, it hit a little harder because he's had interactions with this guy, and most likely,
and with her for that matter,
and most likely, business connections. So you have that as well. So when he initially called Gayle King a bitch, I was like, oh, okay. Snoop's telling her how he feels. I'm gonna take into account that Snoop is emotional about Kobe because we just lost Kobe, and and again, like everybody, he's emotional about it. So I didn't feel like he had to apologize, but I don't have a problem with him coming out and doing the second video to kind of clear up. Hey, I didn't want to call her all the things that I called her, but I still want to make my stance that Gayle King was still out of line for bringing up Kobe in a sexual assault case. But kind of getting to the reasons why I think he had to come out and address it again is because I think when the threats started getting to Gayle King, and Oprah came out on TV and was crying because Gayle King was getting death threats on social media and other platforms. I partially think that Snoop felt a little responsible for that, and I
yeah.
think the people that advised him on apologizing felt the same way. So I think you have that angle, to play a
Well,
part
let's
in
be
that.
clear. In the second video, that he didn't apologize.
Well, I think he apologized for calling her a bitch. He
No,
didn't
he didn't.
apologize, huh?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he did.
And in the third video, he apologized. In the second video, he said, "I don't promote no violence."
There's
In
a
the
third
second video,
video.
he said, the third video is him apologizing. The second video that he came out with was that Saturday or Sunday, I want to say, where he said, I don't Snoop Dogg, I don't promote no violence. And with that being said, what the fuck do I look like wishing harm on a 70-year-old woman?
Yeah, that's the video
The
I saw.
third Yeah, this third video, which came
Okay.
out like
Okay.
last week, was him saying, "I apologize to Gayle King," and he ended it with "Have a nice day." And our reaction, I don't remember when we spoke about this. I thought we spoke about it last week on the podcast, but him saying "Have a nice day," and I was like, well, that seemed like, oh, we spoke about it on Instagram. That seemed
Yeah.
like a forced apology, because who ends their apology with "Have a nice day"?
So okay, so
That's
there's a
so the one
video
you posted was the third video.
that was the third. Okay, so I must have missed the video in between then.
Yeah, you
Okay,
missed
so
the
yeah.
video where he said, "What the fuck do I look like wishing harm on a 70-year-old woman?"
Okay, so well, wait a minute. Well, the video I posted, I thought that's what he said in that one.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then you missed the third video where he apologized.
Huh. Okay.
But you
I'm
missed the
gonna.
video one way or the other. You missed the video.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to kind of look at all three of these videos like in full once again back to back then, because I could have swore that he made it clear that he apologized for calling her a bitch, but not necessarily apologizing for at least addressing her and letting her know that, hey, what you did in that video with Lisa Leslie was uncalled for.
Yeah, no, he definitely didn't apologize in that second video. The third video, he apologized. Um, I remember it being a blue background in that second video. And just for sake of clarity, the first video is when he went on her. Correct?
Yes,
That's what we're
that's
deeming.
correct.
The
That's
second
correct.
video is the one that I'm speaking about when he said, "What do I look like wishing harm on a 70-year-old woman?" And then
Okay.
the third video is him actually apologizing, saying, "Look, I apologize. I shouldn't have approached you like that, but I was upset." And he ended it with "Have a nice day."
Okay. Yeah, for some reason, when you said the have a nice day part, I thought that was in the end of the second video where he said, "What do I look like calling a 70-year-old person a bitch?" I
Mm.
thought all that was combined in that one video. So I have to
Okay.
go. I have to go back and look at that catalog of videos just to kind of if I gotta correct myself, then I'll do that. But I definitely gotta look at those.
I mean, not
I gotta look at
necessarily.
those
I mean,
videos.
not necessarily, really.
Well, if I miss one, then I gotta I gotta confirm to myself that hey, at least I saw it.
Well, sure. I'm not saying don't prove you right or wrong. I'm just saying you ain't got to correct it. You ain't got to come on the air and be like I was wrong. I mean, you're not indicting nobody in your error.
Oh, sure, sure.
That's all right.
Yep. What else you got?
I ain't got nothing else, man. I
Oh, you know what I wanted to address, man. I did kind of put in the notes, and I think every time I put something in these notes,
I'm missing it. I'm
I
not
get
getting
this.
them.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Huh. Okay. Because I was getting the sense that I don't think he's like even seeing what I'm writing in these notes here.
I'm not.
But here's the one thing I did want to address, and I'll be honest with you. Quite frankly, I should be addressing the Houston Astros situation, but I'm not going to go there because I'm not really prepared to do so. This thing with John Beeline, right, the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Mm-hmm. He quit,
So
right?
he's expected to quit at the end of the night. I guess I'm thinking they got a game, but I'm like they're still in their All-Star break. They don't have
Mm-hmm.
games until Thursday.
Right.
So yeah, I saw a headline where the dude is gonna quit in the middle of the season, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so my initial reaction to that, right, was I go back to 2007 in the NFL when a man named Bobby Petrino coached the Falcons that one year after the whole Vic thing fell down and everything. Um, Bobby Petrino quit on the team in the middle of the season, but then I had to stop myself and say to myself, wait, Bobby Petrino not only quit on his team in the middle of the year, he left a notice in the locker room saying, "Hey, I can't deal with this the rest of the year. It's time for me to go. Peace out." And didn't even address his players one by one by one.
Right.
In the case of John Beeline, and I guess he still has time to do that. But if I'm a player and I see that headline on the news or wherever, I'm not happy about that, and I don't know if he's addressed his players or not to this point. But if he didn't, and players saw that, then if I'm a player, I can't be happy about that.
You mean with Beeline?
Yeah,
Um, I- Look, I would love to say that I have an opinion, a valid or a a great anecdote to that. But I mean, look, what was he in trouble? What was he apologizing for earlier this season? I forget what the story was.
so in the locker room, he called the players thugs. Now
Yeah,
I wanna make sure I get the context right about that, but
they were playing like thugs.
yes, not necessarily calling them thugs one by one. And
Meaning they
so
weren't playing good basketball,
right, and the Cavs
and
suck. They stink this year.
yeah, I
Nothing
mean,
nothing new there.
I, I mean, if your problem is that he should have hung it up. I mean, he should have stuck it out to the end of the year.
That's my
I
problem.
mean, I guess, but I mean, did he was he about to be fired?
Um,
Obviously, we don't know. I'm not asking you to
yeah,
answer per
right,
se,
right,
but was he
right.
about to be fired and he just left? Did
It's a good
somebody do?
question.
I mean, did somebody do something to him where he felt like, oh man? Because here's the thing. He said he didn't say it, but then he apologized for saying it or for them misconstruing what he said.
Right.
Um, do you think that players feel some kind of way afterwards, even after he apologized?
And I think that's possible. I think that incident is playing a role in why he's, leaving the team this
So
coming
if that's
year.
the case, and he's officially lost the locker room, what's the hell? What's the point of him being there?
I mean, if that's the case, then yes,
If
you got
that's
a
the
point
case,
there. Yes,
yeah. So I mean,
you got a point there. But
yeah,
if it's not the case, and you still have somewhat of a respectability. You're John Beeline, and I get you're more popular in the college ranks as a coach. And I get college and NBA is different in terms of coaching. You're coaching kids versus coaching adults and things like that. I get that, but you gotta finish the season, man.
I don't think he has to.
Considering again, knowing what I know, you finish the season, bro.
What do you know that you feel like he has to finish the season? I don't feel like he had to at all.
And again, this is considering that it has nothing to do with what he said about their play earlier in the year.
Right, I get that. If it had nothing to do with that, why does he have to finish the season?
If it had nothing to do with that, if he's got to, well, if the if the if the ownership fires him, then so be it. There's nothing you could do about that. The team is bad, and if the ownership feels like they want to move another direction, then you know that is what it is. But if the ownership is just sitting back and just letting the season play out, and you're John Beeline, and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna have to call it quits. I haven't even heard any rumors about any health situations. Because if it's health, I'll give him a pass. If it's health,
What if he just felt like, hey, I'm underqualified. I can't do this shit.
Nah, man. In my eyes, you gotta finish the season, man.
Even if you're underqualified.
You got the job, right?
That don't mean you had underqualified. It just means you had a good job interview.
You interviewed. You elected to interview. It's not like they forced the interview on you.
Maybe he thought he was qualified when he interviewed.
He showed up, right?
Maybe he thought he was qualified when he showed up. Maybe he
man.
realized then let's be clear, this team is trash.
Yeah.
This team is trash.
And he had to know that, right? He had to know what the situation he was coming in against, right?
Or he thought he could turn them into a better team and realized, oh, I can't do this. For whatever is happening in the inner workings of that team, he might have realized, oh shit, I can't fix this. Somebody need to come in here and fix this because it ain't finna be me.
Yeah.
Why waste the rest of my season stressed out trying to do some shit that I know I ain't finna do?
Yeah, I don't know, fam. I think we just kind of see a little different on this one. Again,
no, I don't see it anyway. I don't see. Let's be clear. I don't have an opinion. I don't like this. That story. I truly don't give a fuck about. I'm just talking. Obviously we got to provide content. You're talking about it.
Yeah.
He might have just felt like it's a very. I think if you're asking me to give an opinion, I think he lost the locker room. I think he lost the locker room with that shit. That playing like thug shit.
Right?
I don't. And for him to even say that makes me wonder if he ever had the locker room to begin with.
It's possible. It's
so
possible.
For him, if I'm to define thug by definition, I would imagine thug has something to do with being undisciplined in your basketball play. And if you can't get your players to play disciplined basketball, you don't have your locker room anyway. It'd be one thing if they playing disciplined. It'd be one thing if they playing disciplined basketball, but they just sucking because the other teams are just superior to them. But if you can't even get them to go out and play a fundamental basketball game with with the game plan intact, you don't have your locker room.
Yeah, and Tristan Thompson was on a couple episodes of Shaq and the Fool the other week, so yeah, I totally I see your point with that's concerned. I'm just saying, given if those situations aren't what they are, if those situations have nothing to do with him leaving, if he's just quitting just to quit, then I'm like, damn, like, can you finish the season at least if you're gonna quit? Like,
I mean, I hear you, and that would be a respectable thing, and that is a respectable thing. But if you done, you done. It's just like, damn, I'm done. People do quit at some point. I don't think he owes them. I mean, obviously contractually he owes them, but maybe not if he just got out of the
I was saying
contract.
maybe not. I mean,
Yeah,
I wouldn't consider the Cavs to be the smartest front office out there. But
yeah. I think when you done, you done. And ain't nothing wrong with knowing that you done,
it's possible.
especially in this situation.
It's possible. And quite frankly, I don't care what his next stop is. I just wanna be clear about that.
I
I don't
didn't. I didn't care
I don't
that
give a
this was
damn.
his stop. I didn't care that this was his stop when he got the job. So
Well, I didn't care either that he
yeah.
got the job. But now that this has become a story, it's like you gonna quit in the middle of the year, like, and not really, really give like an explanation on what's really like going on. Like, if and again, if it's health, I'll give you a pass.
Well, then
You
I
know,
would wait till. Well, then I would wait for. You don't think he gonna do a conference or nothing?
I think he's gonna do a press conference.
All right. So I would just wait for that. Then I wouldn't draw. I wouldn't draw any inferences until he at least his conference if he's doing one.
That's fair. That's fair.
Mhm.
And shout out to BS3 Sports Radio in the building, in the chat room. Appreciate your support.
What's up?
Just want to give a shout out to all the listeners, and we appreciate everything. We appreciate the support of the podcast. Just a few things before we get up on out of here. Make sure y'all check us out on the website, barbershopsportstalkpodcast.com. If you want to upload this episode, you can do so on the website. And also for future shows, if you want to get in the chat room, you can definitely do that during our live feed on the website. Also follow us on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Again, as I said earlier in the show, we have a 10-minute video of us discussing the slam dunk contest. So you guys make sure y'all check that out. Also, you can check it out on IGTV and also our Instagram at Barbershop Sports Talk Podcast. Follow us on the Facebook page. Hit us up on Twitter at Barbershop SPOR2. And if you got any questions about the show, just hit us up at barbershopsportstalk1 at gmail.com. So, Maestro, if you got nothing else, man, I'm going to just close this thing out.
Yes,
And,
sir.
he's Maestro Styles. I'm Trey Frazier. Appreciate the love. We'll catch y'all next week, folks. Peace.